So I can lose 10 hours to Guild Wars 2 without noticing a single one of them going by. I may sit down for a bit after the kids are down, I go do a couple map events, and the next time I look up it's like 12:30 in the morning and my Dr. Pepper Zero from 8 p.m. is now lukewarm and layered. Those dishes from lunch though, those are probably still in the sink, and that thing in the hallway that I told my wife that I'd handled 3 days ago, that's still not handled. Same brain, same day, all of those things just got 10 focused hours and the other one couldn't get 4 minutes of it. If that sentence makes you feel personally attacked, then hi, welcome to my channel. You might have the same brain that I do. I've got ADHD. At the very least, ADHD. I also got 4 kids who all have the same brain, at least. So we are near the end of summer break and that house is doing that low-grade chaos thing that it does. I have a little checklist, knock out one thing that I'm standing next to, reward myself the second that it's done. Halfway through the dishes and holding the sponge, I stopped and I realized to myself that I might have gamified my house a little bit. And I guess the weird part is that it was working. It was at least working better than any of those productivity apps that I ever spent my time and money and rage quits on. And I have to tell you why that landed so hard, because that's the reason I felt compelled to make this whole video. That's the whole reason this exists. So I am the parent at home these days. I am the stay-at-home parent. Right now my wife is the breadwinner and I am just the bread maker. Because if you've been anywhere near tech or gaming in the last couple of years, much less the last couple weeks, you already know that the majority of it is just like a smoking, smoldering crater. So for now, I'm the one that's at home, and with all 4 of our kids out for school for the summer, the house has become my double full-time job. The schedules, the meals, the dishes, and the laundry is all a part of my daily raid. And it's bigger than me being a little scattered. One of my kids is dyslexic, and my youngest has Down syndrome and autism. So whatever system I run has to do 2 things that usually don't go together. It has to hold enough structure that a brain like mine doesn't fall apart, and it has to survive getting blown up without warning all day. And it still needs to be able to put itself back together. I already know how that road goes if nobody hands you something useful early. If there's even a tiny piece of this that I can catch now for my kids who are wired like me and anyone watching this video, that matters more to me than anything else I could ever put on this channel. So when I realized that I was running the raid called Life a little bit better because I was treating it like my favorite massively multiplayer online game, that's when the whole job suddenly became just a tiny bit easier. Or at least it made a little bit more sense. It's not a small thing for me. I really had to know why it worked. So here's what I did, because obviously I can't let it go and I make content for a living. I went and looked at how Guild Wars 2 is actually built. Not the story, not the combat, but the scaffolding itself. The dailies, the timers, the little progress bars, the rewards, the stuff the designers put in to keep a brain moving from one thing to the next. And I lined it up next to all of the lists that I've been handed during my adult life. The ones from therapists and neurodivergent social media influencers, the one in every ADHD article. And just like the meme from The Office, it's the same picture, beat for beat, mechanic for mechanic. So a game studio in Seattle, the same one that started the whole Jimothy trend, and most ADHD therapists and experts independently arrived at the exact same playbook for getting a brain like mine to actually not just do something, but follow through and do it to completion. And then they just shipped it in different boxes. One came with a premium currency pop-up and one came with a copay. God bless America. But keep this in mind for later. And this video represents the Venn diagram of those habits. The 2 lists line up in at least 6 different places that work at least the most for my brain. These are the ones that actually changed how I run the day-to-day. And because we are on YouTube and I've watched a lot of Jenny Nicholson videos, I'm going to do this in a list of 5 plus a bonus tip. Number 1, the daily quest is a to-do list that finally makes sense. So in Guild Wars 2, you've got the Wizard's Vault. You log in, there's a handful of small daily objectives sitting there. Not 30, just a couple, like 4 or 5, not 6 or 7. You do the small things, you get a little reward, the bar goes up. Boop. The ADHD version of make a to-do list has never really worked for me. And here's why. Nothing on a household list is just one thing. Every item on there has its own little trap door. Say I write down the grocery list is simple enough, except an accurate list means knowing what we already have, and knowing what we have means going through the pantry. And the pantry needs to be reorganized before I can fully see what we have, which means everything needs to come out of the shelves, which means that I am now wiping down the shelves, and it's like 11 o'clock at night, and there's still no list, and my kids have basically had to scrounge for themselves with leftovers for the night. Hal goes to change a light bulb. He's out of bulbs. The shelf that they were on is broken. The drawer with the screwdriver sticks. Lois finds him under the car and asks about the light bulb. And he yells,
"What does it look like I'm doing?"
There's no order, there's no end, and every one of them is just equally on fire. It is analysis paralysis. So I end up just closing my notebook app and I go do nothing. Or I go play Lorcana online because it's just much easier to do and way more mentally stimulating, damn it. And they're doing an online client now, so there's no excuse for you people to not start getting into Lorcana. Thank me later. Guild Wars 2 never does that to me though. The game gives me 4 things. Just 4, and none of them open into anything else. And I can even have those 4 things cater to the mood that I'm in. And more often than not, I'm just wanting to do some regular run around the world, do a couple quests, kill some things type of mood. When Guild Wars 2 tells me to just go to a certain zone and do some quests, that's exactly what it's saying. And the people who built it say the small size is the point. ArenaNet's product manager and lead designer wrote up how they made it. They wanted engagement with the game rather than feeling like a list of chores. Players told them the rewards came too easy. They said, good, that is intentional. Now my actual list is just like 3 or 4 things that are genuinely the day. And yes, there are always going to be sub-steps, but the brain dump of everything else and the ripple effects of everything else that lives somewhere else that I'm not staring at. In the world of therapy, they call this chunking. You take one overwhelming pile and break it into a few small pieces that you can actually finish. And in Guild Wars 2, this is just called a Tuesday. Part 2, reward the finish. Right now, not someday. So this is the one I think is really the whole secret. In the game, the second an event ends, the reward is just there. And most of the loot picks itself up. You don't stop, you don't click, you never even have to leave the fight if that's what you're doing. It's in your bag before the boss finishes falling over. The studio built it that way as well. And there's a name for what my gamer brain does with the payoff that far out. It's called delayed discounting. The further away the reward, the harder the brain marks it down. And the brain with ADHD marks it down brutally. A payoff 3 weeks out might as well just never exist. So, do the dishes because future you will appreciate a clean kitchen is a sentence in a language that I do not like to speak, at least not fluently. But do the dishes, and then the moment that you're done, you sit down with a cup of coffee, and maybe, depending on the day and the time of day, maybe a little bit of the Benjamin as well. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm not gonna judge. That one lands. That's my loot drop. I moved the reward to the finish line instead of far off someday, and suddenly the finish line is worth running towards. 3. Hang the routine on a fixed time, because my internal clock only operates on rumors and suggestions. So Guild Wars 2 runs its bosses on a fixed schedule. The big group events kick off at certain times as well. And if you want them, you show up. The game doesn't ask you to feel when it's time, it just posts the time. So personally, time blindness is a part of this, and it's really hard to explain. For people that have it, the concept of later and now are basically the same thing right up until the moment that now turns into holy shit. So I stopped trying to feel time and started hanging things on like more visual fix. It's a subversion of the way that the game hangs a boss or a world event on a fixed clock. My chores aren't just a list hanging above my head anymore, they now have fixed cues that are attached to them. If my kids are playing outside, that is when I go do yard work. If I'm upstairs with my youngest early in the morning and everyone else is still asleep, then I guess I'm wiping down the cabinets while I'm drinking my coffee. The chore or the thing happens because I have the cue. As a parent, especially when you have younger kids, you kind of have to plan all of your chores and all of your tasks around them. 4, just start the one that you're standing next to. This next tip kind of piggybacks off of that. The way that quests work in Guild Wars 2 is through what they call renown hearts. You wander into an area and there's something that you need to do. You fill up the bar by doing literally whatever is nearby. That can be killing enemies, it can be gathering items, it can just be going up to people and doing certain emotes. You just have to do a task. And sometimes it's not about picking at all. I get pulled away mid-task for one of my kids constantly. And when I come back 10, 20, 30 minutes later, whatever I'm doing still has to make sense to me when I pick it back up. ArenaNet built these specifically to bury the old kill 10 rats quest grind. Their design manifesto actually mocks the traditional version. Some villager, quote unquote, standing there, motionless with an exclamation point over their head, going, "Help, we're being terrorized by bandits," or, we're being terrorized by the monarchy. Their fix for that is to skip the checklist, drop you somewhere where the thing is already happening, and you pitch in any way that you can. So for me, just a simple advice of any order, just start, is borderline medicinal. The term for it is task initiation, the actual getting started. That's where I live and that is where I die. That is the hill that I am more than willing to die on. Dr. Thomas E. Brown, a clinical psychologist who studies ADHD, breaks executive function down into 6 clusters, and organizing, prioritizing, and activating 4 tasks is the first one on that list. It's describing my whole life right now. They're describing my kid's life right now as well. And, we're sitting there, we're both having mental and emotional breakdowns because neither one of us knows where to even start on this task. And the thing that I try to remember is from the outside, it may look like laziness, and I know that it's not. You listening, CJ? I know that it's not laziness. What's actually happening is some part of my brain and some part of my kid's brain trying to figure out and demand that we have the correct first move before we're allowed to make any move at all. And in that negotiation with the self, it can sometimes eat up an entire day. So the thing that has taken me over 30 years to learn is to just force myself to do the dish that I'm standing next to. Not the correct dish. I don't do the pots or the pans or whatever first. I just do the closest dish. And once my hands are moving, the rest just gets a lot cheaper and easier to do. 5. Make the progress visible. And to piggyback off our piggyback, if I can't see it, it's not real. Every MMO does this, and Guild Wars 2 does it everywhere. Map completion percentages, achievement panels, a bar for everything. You know exactly how done you are. So, because I am a visual person, it's hard for me to imagine progress bars inside my own brain. It's not stored anywhere I can get to. I need to externalize it. And my list never stops. It is running all day. It is getting turned over in the background of my mind while I am out doing other stuff. And most of what's on it is stuff like this, stuff like the videos that I'm working on, whether it be a line, an observation, an argument that I want to make. And those moments show up in my brain whenever they want. They could be showing up while I'm dropping off the kids off at school. It could be showing up while I'm going through the grocery store or trying to drop something off at the post office. I had to set up some real technological shit where I could do something like do a voice note in the middle of my car and have it be automatically sent and backed up to a shared folder on my computer that I can access later. This is why being a nerd is good. And just getting it out of my head is its own relief. Once all the creative stuff is written down somewhere that I trust, it stops taking up room. And what's left over is enough attention to go do the rest of the house. And my house, I don't really have an obsidian vault for that. There's no whiteboard. My dailies here at home are mainly just cleaning and laundry, making sure my kids are fed. It doesn't really need a progress bar. The tasks themselves are the bars. The laundry pile shrinks visibly, the rooms look a little bit cleaner, the routine gets a little bit shorter, and sometimes it even gets a little bit easier. And a bonus one, for those of you who have the ability to do it. And even when you're doing something alone, sometimes it's still better to do it with someone else in the room. Not like that though. In the game, every so often, something enormous shows up out of the world. A dragon lands in the middle of the map, and anyone who happens to be nearby can pile on. And one of the players will stick a little icon that everyone else can see in the game's zone map. It's a flag that says, "Here, this is where the thing is happening." Now, I don't know this person, nobody ever invited me, and technically no one's coordinating anything. I just see the flag and a pile of strangers are already swinging at the big thing, and I can just join in. And sometimes just seeing that alone is enough to make me want to get involved as well. And for me, my house is pretty much the same way. A chore that I've avoided for a week, I end up knocking out in 10 minutes if I just ask one of my kids to just do something like a cursory pickup of the house while I'm getting started. Or if I ask my wife to fold a couple towels while I'm switching the laundry, and I just end up taking care of the rest. And I'm going to say something controversial here, not sexist, it's controversial. In the grand scheme of things, their 30 seconds of help doesn't really help move the needle in regards to, I guess, the forest from the trees, but it is nice mentally and emotionally knowing that even for 30 seconds, I just got that little bit of help. They just have to be present, and then the tasks just stop feeling impossible. They stop feeling never ending. It actually feels like a noticeable notch has been taken out of my list. So the name for this technique is called body doubling. A clinical psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania, J. Russell Ramsey, puts it plainly. Adults with ADHD are, quote unquote, more likely to initiate and engage in a typically avoided task if someone else is present. The game side of this actually got studied too. In 2006, 4 researchers published a study on how people really play World of Warcraft and found that most of them weren't grouping up much at all. They were using each other as an audience. Their phrase was alone together, surrounded by other people, but quote, not necessarily actively interacting with them, unquote. Now, I just want to say that I found this study after I started writing this script, but yes, this is literally everything I've been talking about. These are just different tools that can help, and they aren't proven cures, obviously, but you already get it without the term. You know, you have your gym buddy, your study group, shout out to Community, 6 seasons in a movie, doing the dreaded thing next to a body so that it isn't only you who's partaking in the dread. Why Guild Wars 2 and not WoW? So I keep saying Guild Wars 2 specifically, and there is a real reason for that. It's why any of this was learnable at all, at least to me. So most big MMOs run on what is called vertical progression. You pay a subscription, about $15 a month or something like that, and every expansion raises the level cap and the gear ceiling. So the gear that you spent all that time grinding for last year, suddenly it's a little bit worse, and it's back on the treadmill chasing a new one. Raf Koster, who helped develop proto-MMORPG Ultima Online, looked back at WoW's 10 years in and described it as a path carefully planned to constrain you, keeping you, quote, always seeking the next glowy mark over an NPC's head, unquote. Guild Wars 2 threw that out. Level cap has been 80 since 2012. It's never been raised. There is no subscription. You buy the expansion pack that you want, and everything past that is in the gem store. Mostly cosmetics, but the convenience stuff too. There's bag slots, character slots, better gathering tools. This isn't an ad, by the way. There's no rush to any endgame because the endgame is whatever you decide is fun. Yes, sir, level 80 boosters, but the game, it so heavily wants you to have the journey before the destination. Shout out to Bridge 4. And I'm going to reiterate this because it's really worth reiterating. Even the busy work counts. Literally wandering a field and picking flowers for, potion making, alchemy, whatever, the game is still handing you XP, and you could technically level up just by picking said flowers. There is no wrong move. ArenaNet said it out loud. The game, quote, doesn't suck your life away and force you into a grinding treadmill, unquote. And that's the part that makes me really appreciate this game. I've been chipping away at my first legendary weapon for actual years now, working at it whenever I have the spare hour or day. Except most of that time has gone into the game's story content instead, and I still have 2 whole expansions sitting there unplayed. I feel zero rush about any of it, but also be warned that much freedom is also disorienting before it's actually fun. Guild Wars 2 hands you so much choice that the paralysis can hit you before the good parts do. And what order works for me? There's a very simple and real word for that, and researchers call it autonomy. It's not some psychotherapy buzzword, and it's the reason why the game holds on to you at all. Now, if I stopped right here, this would be one of those weird and kind of gross little videos where I say, gaming fix my brain. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more ADHD tips. But I want to be careful about that because while I may use it as a clickbait title, that's unfortunately the game we have to play in order to get people to look at our stuff. And it's the actual kind of lie that gets people hurt. So here's the catch. This isn't just a Guild Wars 2 thing. Almost every MMO, almost every live service game, every mobile game, almost every modern video game is built on this exact same psychology and purpose. Most of the time, it's not because anybody's rooting for your life to get better. It's because it keeps you logged in, it keeps you playing, and it keeps you paying. The same design that walks me through the dishes is the same one that can eat up 8 to 10 hours of a Saturday night that I could have been spending with my kids. Don't get it twisted. The machine that is my brain, it doesn't know if it's pointed at the kitchen or a world boss. It just runs on vibes. It runs on the dopamine that I feel from whatever I'm doing. And it will absolutely run you into the ground that is 2 in the morning if you let it. Just ask me how I know. Same basic loop, just tuned to make you chase the next reward instead of enjoying the last one. This got written down in 2001. John Hobson, a behavioral psychologist with a Duke PhD, handed the industry a guide to which reward schedules keep people playing longest. Then he spent 20 years building the research behind them. This man worked with Halo and Destiny at Bungie. He was a part of Blizzard's first gameplay research team, and he was a part of the analytics leadership team at NCSoft and ArenaNet, actually contributing to Guild Wars 2. Which is why I keep coming back to the no treadmill thing. I took this from a game that isn't trying to keep me. A subscription game where I had the sunk cost fallacy. Literally, it's a lot harder to let go. But a subscription to me is never hard to let go. Like and subscribe. And that's the actual realization. It's never that gaming fixed my brain. It was that I finally noticed which parts of the game were doing the work. And I pointed that part at the sink of dishes and the laundry instead of the dragon. Take the to-do list engine and leave the slot machine behind, please. Finale, the part you can actually use. So if you take one thing out of this video, fellow parent, fellow neurodivergent person, it is this one fact. I'm a guy who had coffee instead of lunch today. Again, needing the scaffolding isn't really a character flaw any more than needing glasses is. They both make you sexy. I spent a long time being told that I was lazy for needing any type of help at all and trying to figure this out. And that's not necessarily true. At least for me, it just had to be built and manifested in a way that I could actually see it. So you've probably got the thing that you'll happily sink 6 hours into, whether it be a game or some sort of hobby or whatever the one corner of your life is that you're just so weirdly good at. Try to look at how that thing is built, and I think that it's holding your attention on purpose with actual mechanics. And these mechanics will work on your bedroom, they'll work on your dishes, they'll work on that giant pile of stuff that you just need to sort through. You've already got the discipline, you've got the muscle memory, you just have to be willing to drive it somewhere that is a hell of a lot more boring. Like, I grew up in Kansas. I know a lot about boring drives. I don't have this figured out, by the way. I'm a stay-at-home dad who didn't exactly plan on being a stay-at-home dad. So I am running a house and learning to still walk at the same time. And plenty of days, the whole thing just falls apart because I'm tired, or my kids are having a freaking mood, or I just don't emotionally have it in me. But I did spend years getting pretty good at one thing, finding the systems underneath a game and bending them into doing what I would like them to do. So I am pointing that skill set at the only raid that actually matters now. That's the 4 kids and the house that they've been tearing apart all summer. Anyway, the kitchen's almost clean for tonight. My kids are getting ready for bed. It's summer, they get to stay up late. And if I'm lucky, I will be taking down a world boss tonight. And if I end up doing something that's more productive or more important, that's okay. Because all of this was about learning which part to keep and which part to walk away from. So we'll see what time I make it to bed tonight.